down from Mongolia, bearing its rich yellow silt to the Yellow Sea. Destroyer of cities, killer of millions, even in our own century. Chinese civilization first arose on its banks, but unlike the civilizations of the West, the source of political power did not lie in control of nature, but in control of the past. There's nothing to see at Anyang today. The site of the palaces and tombs where the dragon bones were found has been ploughed over. But here were the ruins of Yin, the last city of the ill-fated Shang dynasty, burned down in 1100 BC. And here was the answer to the riddle of the dragon bones. The chemists in Beijing had been grinding up the ritual archive of the Shang kings. These were oracle bones used by royal diviners to communicate with the ancestral spirits. In these strange marks lay the beginnings of the I Ching, the great Chinese book of wisdom. It was through the magic power of writing that the ancestral spirits could be raised. And the ancient Chinese word for these symbols, Wen, writing, would become the word for civilization itself. In the beginning was not the city, but the word. The second key find at Anyang was the bronzes. They were used for sacrifices and ritual meals. Their inscriptions tell of the worship of ancestors and lineage, basic preoccupations of the Chinese till today. It was the possession of these things, the performance of the correct rituals, the monopoly of bronze and writing, which gave the rulers access to the wisdom of the ancestors. This was the basis of political power. And only with this could the ruler possess the greatest of all gifts. A gift to be kept only so long as he was just and cared for the people. The mandate of heaven. A fresh grave in the cemetery of the Kung family in Qufu. A monument to the most influential figure in Chinese history, Kung-Fuzi, Confucius. It was Confucius who transformed the magic of the Bronze Age into the conception of the state as a moral order sustained by virtue and ritual. Confucius lived in that astonishing Axis age when the Buddha was alive, and Pythagoras and the Greek philosophers, the Jewish prophets. Not a religious leader, but the codifier of China's traditions in history, poetry, and ritual. His teachings were the ideal of Chinese government for 2,000 years. At the center of Confucius' message was a very simple and original idea. He wasn't concerned with God or the afterlife or heaven. I don't know anything about those things, he said. His concern was that of every government today on earth. How do you build a just and stable society here? And his answer was this: goodness was the essential quality needed to keep society together. People are not born good, they need to be taught goodness, rulers and rule. But it was essential that the rulers were taught goodness, spiritual and intellectual, because if rulers rule with unjust harshness and severity, meting out punishments with regimentation, then people lose their faith in the law. They lose their respect for themselves. They have no sense of shame. But if people are taught goodness, then they have all those qualities, and they regulate themselves. Confucius' vision then was of a moral society bound together by mutual respect and trust. And though he was an aristocrat, it was an anti-authoritarian idea, because the ideology would rest with the scholars, not with the emperors, who themselves had to obey that golden mean. Otherwise they risked forfeiting the mandate of heaven, as even today's rulers of China have found out.
In the last few years, the rulers of China have revived some of the old Confucian traditions, at least in their outward form. Performance of these rituals ceased after the Communist Revolution. These are actors, and this ceremony in Confucius' hometown is for tourists. They're largely foreign Chinese tourists from Taiwan, Hong Kong and Singapore, rediscovering routes severed, temporarily it would now seem, in 1949. It's a vision of a splendid past which the rulers of China in our time attempted to do away with in the belief that new traditions could replace them. But just when we think we've shaken it off, the past has an uncanny habit of coming back to restate its old claims on our loyalties. The ancient Chinese believed that Earth, nature and the cosmos were part of a harmonious natural order, the Tao, or path. The search for the right path, Taoism, is the second great stream of Chinese thought, a natural mysticism to set beside the practical common sense of Confucius. Not an alternative, but the other half of a necessary balance in life. The pilgrim path up the sacred mountain, Taishan, is a symbol for that search for the Tao. It's been walked for thousands of years by Chinese people, rich and poor, from the first emperor to Chairman Mao. And today, tourists and pilgrims are coming again. For so long, Western culture has seen nature in terms of control and exploitation. But for the Chinese, it is the source of all harmony and balance. They thought it was our duty as human beings, through art, religion or science, to understand the harmony, not to abuse it or needlessly to change it, but to go with the force of nature, the yin and yang, as they would say. The little Taoist temple on the top of Taishan, dedicated to the goddess of the mountain, was wrecked in the Cultural Revolution. It's now lived in again, not by actors, but by real Taoist monks and nuns who came back in 1985, committing themselves to the old way. In the end, said the Taoist sage Lao Tzu, all creatures return to their distinctive roots. That is called returning to one's destiny. These people are tourists from Taiwan. Their leader is a spirit medium well known on TV in Taipei. It's the kind of ceremony you can see in backstreet ancestor temples in the urban jungles of Singapore and Hong Kong. Now they're returning to commune again with the older ancestors. On the summit of Taishan, the pilgrims wait for the first glimpse of the dawn. It was up here that Chairman Mao proclaimed the East is red. But that was before his great leap forward turned the dawn yellow with pollution. The first emperor surveyed his kingdom from here as the sun rose and announced, "Now I've united the whole world." Confucius said simply, "Now I realize how small the world is."